Witness Notes 8, Cercal, Portugal, July 2020. After you have read these introductory paragraphs once, you can skip to the new, old content here. If you are listening, then the timestamp is around the 2-minute 45-second mark. Introduction. The word settle to me carries connotations I am keen to avoid. I have never felt settled, or perhaps I cannot recall a time I felt settled. I do not feel settled now, writing this, and I've lived in the same house for 3.5 years. Without even discussing the obvious issues of colonisation, I just don't feel like I could or should settle. Better to keep my constituent parts shook up, agitated perhaps, rather than separating stagnant. Instead, I feel as though I have been travelling for years, maybe because I have not lived in my home nation of Scotland for 8.5 years. Perhaps because I know I won't stay here forever, or maybe because I carry that concept of home in a way which differs from many. More precisely, I still think of myself as a slow traveller, globally feral. Recently, I've been revisiting places through the photographs and words I recorded when my feet crossed their soil. This is a way of reminding myself of where I have been, not just in space and time, but in mind too. It is a wonderful thing to come out of below and rediscover myself through words I crafted, through the lens of a camera, when memory has wandered in the fog for too long. Thank you, past me. When I first started sharing letters with the world in this fashion 6 or more years ago, I usually began them with a vignette of where I was, a sort of travel diary mixed with nature observation, locking in the setting for the reader before I spoke of other things, and by so doing ensuring that place fed into the whole. It was a useful device for a reader and myself both, but as these letters were sent to so few readers, and now languish archived behind a paywall, I thought it a shame not to share these snippets again. As such, I am going to share a short series of these sketches accompanied by a photograph from that time, sent to you in date order, beginning with the second eldest. I shall include the above paragraphs in each of the letters in this series, but I shall also include a link at the very start so you can skip ahead once you are familiar with the above words. If you are listening and similarly want to skip, then the timestamp you want to navigate to will be in the same place. Taken without these paragraphs, each is a short read, and I hope you enjoy them. Cercal, Portugal, July 2020. Time, at some points and places, stretches. Days seem longer. The mind translates the passage of the sun in ways which are not perhaps normal. When I was 8, my family moved to Stagnant, Orkney. That month was March, so the daylight was practically the same across the single face of our globe, yet as the months passed and I ventured out to play and explore, to search for lost gold in the burns, plan raft voyages to the Amazon, and torment the bull in the field below Brinky's Brae, the evenings grew beyond anything I had ever witnessed. Time stretched. The sun would be high in the sky long before I woke, and would still be there when I went to bed. It was as though our relocation had gifted me with unlimited playtime, unlimited potential adventure. This was, of course, before that first dark and long winter and subsequent sadness. For me, as for many of you, I suspect, the last few months have also stretched. Think about this time last year, where you were, what you were doing. It seems half a lifetime away, and yet, strangely, also near enough to touch. I am fortunate in that I live in the Northern Hemisphere, and even as I was locked down, the daylight extended. Not by Orkney standards, nowhere near, but each evening was brighter, longer, each morning the sun higher in the sky than the previous. Now that the solstice has passed, the days already feel shorter. The screaming of the swifts more frantic as their insect-snatching hours condense, the moment of departure for Africa ever closer. For this year's young, they will not land for nearly 3 years. Imagine that, sleeping on the wing, never landing, never stopping, constant movement. Nature is ridiculous and wonderful and inspiring. I try to maintain a healthy balance of positivity in this place, to resist my natural tendency to raise uncomfortable, urgent, and, I'd argue, essential questions, at least on balance. Asking these questions is important. In the earlier drafts of this paragraph, I moved from the joy of nature being so inspiring to the bigger issue, to the damage we wreak and sow. I have edited this out. It is a long section, all about our place on this planet, living in a tiny strip of breathable gas, on a floating and equally narrow section of rock. I shall think about how best to use this, but for now I'd just like to reiterate, nature is ridiculous and wonderful and inspiring. Finally, if you can afford to, there are currently 2 direct ways to support my work here. The first is to take out a paid subscription. The second way to support me here is to use my Ko-fi button link to send a tip of any amount. If you enjoyed this letter and wish to share it with others, please do so. I love it when someone shares my work. I also love it when you comment on a piece, really, really love it. Although I always read and appreciate these comments, during 2025 I was not as good at responding as quickly as I would like, but seeing as my word of the year for 2026 is communication, I like to think that will soon change. Finally, many thanks for reading. I truly appreciate each and every one of you who does.